my name is Mariana Clemens. I'm the energy reader. Tara,
I'm Tara Winter. I am a psychic medium. And so, what are we doing today?
we are going to let's talk about it. So we're going to talk about emotion during a. I feel like I'm not looking at the right spot, but this is this is straight ahead for me. So I don't know. There we go. Let's see. There we go. Uh, so we're going to talk about emotion, especially in mediumship readings. But this is also going to be like, there we go. I switched my. Oh, now I look the other way. Okay, let's just keep going. This is going to be about mediumship mostly, but emotion comes up also with animals, very much with animals. It also comes up in psychic readings. And we want to talk about it, right? We want to talk about the place that emotion has in a reading. We also want to talk about the kind of the overarching, do I want to do it this way also? Because there are no actual rules to how you read someone within reason. Obviously, we don't want to tell somebody they're going to die tomorrow and stress them out. So within reason, there are some just common sense, I wouldn't say this to someone rules. But when it comes to how you read and the clear empathy that you bring into the situation, I have a lot to say. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, you hear people, and we're going to see an example of that, where they're saying absolutely no emotion. You are to remain clear, you are to remain neutral. And as a psychic medium, we know that there's emotion that comes in, and that emotion is coming from the spirit. And as we see, we're going to see an example where the person is saying, well, if you connect with spirit and there's emotion, then it's your emotions that you're tapping into, and you are disconnecting from spirit energy. But I found that not to be true. Has that been your experience as well?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it is spirit's energy. It's spirit's emotion, it's spirit's energy. So let's go ahead. Just for, a caveat, we're not videographers. This is not we are trying to upgrade kind of the podcast experience, but we're still working on it. So certainly if people have advice or comments, please do stick them in the comments. We are looking to have other people on as well. Tara and I work together on forensic mediumship cases, but we are also friends and we are also mediums, right? So I
Yeah.
talk to animals and I'm a medium and I talk to nonverbal, but let's play part of the video and then we will respond to it.
Mediumship done, your medium should not be actively in their emotions and crying during reading their dream. Now, there's several reasons I say this, and I don't have enough meetings maybe. So I'm a professional medium as well as a mediumship. Because
Right there. Let's stop. All right. So first of all, and you could just leave her up for a few minutes. The first thing I want to say is I don't understand the allegiance to the term professional medium. So I would assume that she's saying that she makes money for her readings. But I think even if you are donating your readings, or even if you aren't to that point yet where you're charging for readings, there are a lot of us who act professional and we are professional in the manner that we give readings. And it doesn't apply to me anymore. But even when I wasn't charging, when I was still developing, I still consider myself a professional medium. I think anyone who goes into this does.
Absolutely. I think it's very interesting, and again, we're going to see as we get even more into the video, how we call ourselves and elevating from everyone else. Because as you know, and I know that anyone can be a medium, anyone can learn to be a medium. As a matter of fact, I even took your class and learned a lot myself about mediumship and the fact that anyone can learn to do it. And so that
I like how you put that though. Words are so important and I'm such a word nerd and I'm such a grammar type word definition Nazi, right? And that absolutely does kind of elevate yourself. Whether it's accurate or not is really doesn't seem to be the point to some people, because some people introduce themselves all the time as I'm an ethical professional, medium. Well, we're all ethical in our own way and we're all professional in our own way. And if somebody doesn't want to get a reading from us, they won't come to us. But I also I want to go ahead back there and say we need to be neutral. This is a term that I kind of find offensive because I find myself, I am neutral. Like I am the middle. I am always the middle. So you have spirit, for anyone who doesn't know, you have spirit up here, you have a sitter, and then you have a reader. We would be considered the readers. If you were talking to someone who has passed over, you would be considered the sitter. And so you have spirit, a sitter, and a reader. We are literally and figuratively the middle. We never try to figure out what spirit is giving us for you. We never try to put words in your mouth. We don't push it if you don't want to talk to the person. So we're always neutral. That's the point of being a medium.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and go even further here.
Okay, stop. Hold on. Let's read what she said. When a medium is in their mind or ego self, they will start bringing forward info from their mind and interpretations / conclusions filtered through their own beliefs, etc., instead of only what is coming strictly from the spirit. I completely and wholeheartedly disagree with this. And it's what I teach in my class is that we're not bringing through anything. We figuratively and literally, and I might be getting ahead of myself here, but when I have emotion, it is from spirit. It is not my emotion. It's very similar to being a physical empath. And so when I've told you about Jerry Duran before, she's up in Salida, Colorado. She is a shaman. She's one of the few people that I actually kind of promote. I don't get any kickback. She never knows I'm doing it. But I like her that much, right? And she told me one time she was doing a clearing on me at one of these little holistic fairs. And she goes, "You're such a physical empath." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean by that, though? I mean, what do you mean exactly?" She goes, "Well, don't you notice when something starts happening when you're reading?" And I was like, "Well, I do actually, but I guess I didn't put two and two together." And so sometimes that happens, right? Somebody says something and it finally kind of clicks in your brain and you're like, "Oh, is that what that is?" I feel silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, many times I know when you read and I read as well, you'll feel something in your chest. This is not coming from my physical body. This is coming from the spirit. It's no different with emotion. You feeling the emotion that is coming through and you relaying it to the sitter is a piece of that mediumship that is not coming from my self emotion. I'm not the one I'm displaying the emotion as it's channeling through, but I'm not literally feeling that per se. So it's different.
It is different, and that's where understanding the different energies and the feeling. I don't think this person is developed. I think that she has over sold her own development even to herself, because I'll tell you, it just occurred to me. I was reading for this bird one time, and this bird was on its third home because its original owner had died. It had gone to the son. The son didn't want it. So then it went to kind of a foster care situation, which I don't count as a home, but maybe I should. So 3.5. And then it went to this person. And this bird sent me so much emotion about, I am a good bird. I don't know why nobody wants me. I am such a good bird. I'm such a good boy. And I teared up at the time because this was so much emotion coming from this bird through me, excuse me, to the person that was getting the reading. So if a bird can send you emotion, of course somebody who was, a father, son, mother, grandparent, child can send you emotion.
Absolutely.
Let's go a little further. Yeah.
Emotion of their own thinking, mind, and their judgment, etc. They're moving away from spirit.
Oh, stop there. So she says they are moving away from spirit and then have to reestablish that connection to bring through authentic, again, word choice, authentic, as in if you show emotion, you're not authentic in this mediumship.
It is literally the opposite. If you are bringing through emotion, you are authentic. Like, it's literally a mind shift of trying to shut people off, shut the energy off, shut off what spirit is bringing through. When a husband wants to reach his wife and tell her something with emotion, the wife recognizes that emotion. They recognize that there's a mirror that happens where it's coming through so beautiful. And I just can't understand this perspective.
I I would totally agree with you, and I have never once had to reestablish a connection when I felt emotion. Not once. Literally,
Mhm.
if anything, and again, what I teach in my classes, if anything, emotion is what you want to use
Yeah.
to help you establish a connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep going.
Authentic, clean information. Two, this is about the healing of the person we're working with. One of my favorite words that
All right, so go ahead and stop it. All
Okay,
right.
I did. First of all, somebody's drowning. What? You can't help them. Somebody, this is such a word, another word choice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's assuming that emotion is bad, right? That
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
people who are in their emotion are drowning, and you can't save them. You can't help them if you're in there with them.
Yeah. Now, I will say, in all fairness, when I first
Yeah.
started out, and I think I've told you this, but I'm not totally sure, I was too empathy. There was too much empathy. And I had teachers that were trying to tone me down and some that said to take it away. In fact, and I think this is one of the reasons, and James Van Prague isn't perfect by any stretch, right? But he is one of the few teachers who never told me to turn it down or turn it off. And I really had a ton of respect for him for that after the fact, after it all, like after you look back and you kind of pick apart who taught you what and who did what, he never once said, like, oh my God, you're too emotional. What are you doing? Calm it down, do this, do that. He never did that. And I am an incredibly loyal person. And I remember that because I'm an
Yeah.
emotional person and I remember that. And I've had other teachers who were like, oh, you can't do that. You can't cuss, definitely, which sometimes the people that I bring through, cussing was their first language. So yes, I can cuss. And sometimes when I bring a grandma through and she says you can't cuss, I'm like, okay, grandma told me not to cuss from the other side. I won't cuss. But I will say that she's referring to a teacher. I had probably more teachers and just at a high at a high level as she has. And one of the things that I find interesting is that she chose to take every single one of those teachings to heart instead of figuring out what works for her.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
she's referring to this teacher right now instead of what Megan and Lisa found works for Megan and Lisa. So what
Yeah.
works for me is to utilize, use, and bring through that emotion, especially. So I'll give you another example real fast. I don't mean to dominate the conversation. Um, one of the first readings that I did in person was it was like right after like the ban on visiting was lifted or something. And a mom, a grandma, and an aunt came to my house to talk to a young 17-year-old boy who had died in a car accident. And he was hilarious. First of all, he was incredible at conversating at the conversation. And he came over on the hood of the car like this, like he was laying on the hood of the car in my mind's eye when he was coming over. And he got in here and it was too much, right? So between the sister, the aunt, the mom, or the sister, you get my point. There's a grandma, a mom, and an aunt. So between all of that, their emotion coming at me and his emotion coming at me, at one point, I was like, okay, this is too much. And that was my line in the sand. And that was for me to work on. And that was for me to say, okay, I have to be able to emotionally recover from this much emotion. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So
Yeah, it does.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I do agree, like up on the screen, it says our job is to hold space for healing. There is not one point in a reading that I'm not holding space for not only the person on the other side, but the sitter as well. So I feel like it's that dual relationship of where you are holding space. So I do agree with that statement that she's making. I just am not sure I buy into some of the other perspectives.
Right.
A safe space for healing and to not let our own emotions take over. I guess I'm gonna
Okay, so stop there. Hold on. Okay. So to not let our own emotions take over. And this is where I don't think she's as developed as she gives herself credit for, because these are not our emotions. If they were our emotions, I would have had to have been personally connected to this person and be sad for myself that this person is gone. But that isn't the emotion that is coming through. The emotion that is coming through is the incredible tie between the sitter and the spirit. It
Yeah.
literally and figuratively has nothing to do with me. I mean,
Yeah.
literally.
only give over until they identify with those emotions. You just have to describe them. If you're a medium that doesn't see that you can explain
Okay, stop. Go ahead. I'll let you go first this time.
So immediately you can be trained out of it. You can be, one thing I've noticed in mediumship is that we all connect differently. We all process differently, and there are no rules around that. The way I connect is not necessarily the way that you connect. So to say that we can be trained out of it, like it feels like you're training a dog to pee outside, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's literally what I got the vision of is somebody, whoop, swatting on the butt. No, 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 that's not the way
Right.
you do it.
Well, not only that, but you can be trained out of it. And unfortunately, I almost was trained out of it. And I find, and I'm so glad that kind of spirit interceded in there, and more or less, I had a conversation with my spirit team, if you will, right? And they were like, "You're fine. Like you're fine. So you need to stop listening to certain people and, take what resonates and leave the rest," that kind of thing, right? And so um I started doing just that, and I started allowing myself to do it my way. As you go through teachers, you will never do it exactly like in a mentor. Even though you've been in my class, you're not going to do it exactly like me, nor should you. And so you can be trained out of it because of people like this, people like Megan and Lisa, who teach you to live inside this little box. Just think how exciting it would be if you took the box away,
Yeah.
right? I think that one of the reasons I'm able to bring through people that other mediums have not been able to bring through is that I really don't have a box. I don't. So yeah, you can be trained out of it, but should you?
No, you shouldn't. That's my opinion, though.
as long as it doesn't get in your way and it leaves it around you instead of pushing.
All right, we'll stop sharing.
Yeah. All right. So,
No point is a reading about me,
exactly. But
but
it
no,
but it never was. When we first went into this, I think everyone is aware that it isn't about us, though. Do you know what I mean? Well, for the most part. Like I always make sure that I keep my personal stories to a minimum, if at all. I don't know. I think I've probably told a personal story during a reading maybe a handful of times. Now, when I'm teaching, I tell personal stories, obviously, but during a reading, it isn't the time or the place, because it literally isn't about you. So it would have to really apply to the reading incredibly a lot for me to even bring it up. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So I also think, I literally and figuratively think emotion is our way to better readings.
yeah.
And that's what I teach in my class.
The I've just noticed that sitters recognize, they can recognize their loved ones through the emotion. They understand better than anybody the feeling that's coming through. And so,
Especially depending on what piece of information we just gave them. So if we
right.
just said, you know, I'm sorry we couldn't have that baby together, or if we just said, I'm sorry I died on our honeymoon. I mean, that's not a real example, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Then depending on that, and then the emotion comes in, or the emotion came in before, the emotion's coming in while you're trying to say it, then that's going to mean a ton of things. I've had sitters tell me thank you. They've never had an emotional reading before. And here's the thing, we are so disengaged from our emotions in 2023 and as adults. And isn't this the same kind of shame that they gave us as kids that basically made us push out these skills in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're so disengaged from our emotions and we don't know how to handle them. We apologize for them. We say that they're not okay. I have a new class going now, and there was a gal that started to cry, and I was immediate. I said, "Don't hold back. You're fine. You're absolutely fine." Yeah. So anyways, I beat that horse, but you get the point.
Yeah. I just think it's a good conversation to have because again, I think it is what makes really great readings when you're able to connect the and bring through the emotion in a way that the sitter recognizes that emotion. It lands really flat when you're bringing through information and there's no kind of
There's no emotion.
feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does land flat.
like you're a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're not a robot, we're human. What the heck?
absolutely. Yeah, well, this is also the same medium that I don't know if you remember, but I don't know if it was I don't know what medium she was referring to. I kind of thought it might have been me or something, but I was doing a reading one time on live, and I was like, yeah, right, because I was excited about the information that was coming through. And she did a video, I don't know, that day or the next day or something about how we're not supposed to celebrate the hits. And I was like, man, this woman lives in the smallest box available to her. And who makes these rules? Who makes these rules? Because they're not my rules. And I don't have to follow these rules. I think it's amazing when I get a hit and I celebrate it or I laugh with the client or I um, bring through something funny or here's the thing. I have an ass ton of personality. And most of the people that I bring through that are amazing readings also had an ass ton of personality, right? They were human. Not everything has to be sad. And a lot of times I get people who are like, I just want to make this person laugh right now or smile or have a memory or something like that.
Yeah, I had a reading and as I was coming to the end of it, I saw the Bugs Bunny. Da-da-da-da. That's all, folks. And so I said to her, this is what I'm seeing. And, you know, that's all, folks. And she just busted out laughing. She goes, my husband used to say that all the time. So it
Um,
was, and it was funny and
yeah,
we laughed together. And those are the things. You're not always bringing through the sadness,
yeah,
while sadness does exist. You're not always having the physical symptoms of feeling tight in the chest or your throat or wherever it is that they're giving you. But I do bring it through when I feel it, and I do say I'm feeling this emotion that's coming through, and it's I describe it, but I also feel it and I show it.
yeah. Well, I had one who had died of congestive heart failure. And I said, suddenly I can't breathe. It feels like an elephant is sitting on my chest. And I can't remember the other symptoms, but I said, do you understand this for this person? And she's like, yes. And I said, okay, can you fill me in? 'Cause I'd like to get rid of it. And it was congestive heart
Yeah.
failure. And I told Spirit, okay, we're done. We're good. That's a piece of evidence. You can take it away now. And so I've had a ton. There was another time this gal had trouble swallowing and she couldn't get her food down. And I said, God, it was the weirdest thing right before I came to your reading. I was trying to eat my food and I couldn't swallow it. And it like got stuck in my throat sideways. And it was like really, it was kind of painful. And she just went, and I was like, so that applies to somebody we're going to talk to, I'm assuming. And it did. And it did.
And
So,
just imagine if you would not have if you would have said or been in that box, right? Where you're not allowed to feel. You're not allowed to you're only allowed to get it intellectually where you could say I am bringing through someone that might have had a throat issue. I
yeah.
mean, it just doesn't do it justice,
I
right?
agree. I agree. We're almost given a little micro class, honestly, because if you're an
Yeah.
up and coming medium, I say you have to decide for yourself. Do you want to live in this self-imposed little box where a bunch of old-fashioned mediums from 1950 taught you? I don't know who Gordon Smith, I think it's who she's referring to, who is an older person. I mean, it's just that's the reality of it. And so there's old-fashioned mediumship, and then there's new energy reading, like how I did that. But
Mhm.
and then there's newfangled mediumship, right? And there's no reason we have to follow these self-imposed rules that some old folks, put into place in 1950 because they didn't want to insult anyone. That's not 2023. We have a whole different era. We have a whole different hell. People nowadays are sometimes they're even surprised when they know stuff about people, which is kind of a bummer. I know a lot of kids that were like, well, I didn't even know my grandparents, or I didn't even know my aunt or uncle. And so mediumship doesn't even apply to them per se, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
All right.
Well,
So
this has been a really great topic, and I think that my parting words are be authentically you, right? Connect to spirit, how you connect to spirit, how it makes sense for you. And don't live in the box.
yeah, I totally agree. And I think if I had some parting words on this one, I think it would just I think you have to take what makes sense to you. Again, within reason. Obviously, if you can't breathe because you're crying so hard, that doesn't going to work. But if you show emotion, and I do, I do. I was teaching class the other night and I cried. um, because that's who I am. And I'm not going to keep changing who I am for other people. And it's so ironic that this and the spiritual community is constantly beating this drum about be yourself, be authentic, do this, do that. And then when you do, they're right behind you, like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. So it's a very paradoxical gaslighting niche, if you will. I didn't say that very well, but
Agreed.
all right. Well, listen, guys, if you guys have a TikTok video that you would like us to critique, or if you have some questions about, I don't know, someone said you can't do something or you can do something, send the TikTok video to either myself or Tara.